It was just over a year ago when we moved into our new home and started to build our homestead. We had big visions for what we wanted to create here. Have gardens to grow our own food organically, and even a greenhouse to start seeds in. We wanted to raise chickens and other farm animals, compost, and even collect our own rainwater. As we continue to grow and our vision continues to grow, we look for ways we can improve what we're doing and how we can make this small part of the world a better place. One of those areas we want to improve is about an acre of our land. Currently, it is untouched, wild, and a home for many wildlife. And while I prefer to keep most of it this way, it's the area of our land that floods a lot. The flooding cost us part of our driveway late last year. We had a lot of rain and the storm drains overflowed, without that water having anywhere to go. Our neighbors have a pond that also floods into our property. Much of that water flows into the creek, but when it rains hard for days, it dumps directly onto our land, resulting in marshy conditions. There is another pasture in the front of our property, just past the marshy land where it slopes back up again, that is covered with wildflowers. That is where I'd like to plant on, adding more fruit trees, berries, and herbs. It's also where I plan to start my beekeeping this spring. This year, we are turning our focus on finding a solution to improve this part of our land and try to resolve the flooding issue. So I started to follow the water. So this is the entrance of our driveway, and we have a storm drain that goes underneath our driveway. This is where it filters through, and it winds around down here. Life and value, I hold such luck. You can see here it is flowing. It's pretty deep in this area, so this is where it's mostly flooding in through, and it's coming out this direction. However, there's a couple spots up here where it just seems to stop. There's not some additional trenches or swales that is continuing to allow the water to flow through to the other side. So that is something that we're going to have to look at. The water continues to trickle down through here. This little path here. And on the other side of our property, there's a pond, which ultimately leads to a creek. But down here, this is so marshy. I'm not quite sure how much we can actually grow here. A couple of things that I am looking into, though, is Hugelkultur. Looking into that option, and Chinampas. And I would find 1,000 pearls. But down here, I'll have to stay. You can see here, this is where it starts to drop off. And this leads to our creek that winds behind the greenhouse.
Permaculture is all about finding ways to work with the land, finding creative and holistic solutions to improve it, not only for ourselves, but for the other wildlife that live here and generations that will follow. It's about creating a system that works synergistically. One of those potential solutions is adding more swales. Another potential solution is to add a pond. If I were to do this, I'd want to make it a habitat pond, but I'm leaning more in the direction of adding swales. Our property here is surrounded by trees, so it makes it hard to get any excavation machines down here to do any big jobs. When we dig the swales, we'll be doing it by hand, using the soil that we dig up to make Hugelkultur beds that I can plant into to grow more food and herbs. Hugelkultur is German for hill mound. It's a no-till, sustainable garden method where you build mounded beds using rotting wood and debris, and then putting soil, compost, manure, and other plant material on top. This creates a raised garden bed that is loaded with organic material, nutrients, and over time becomes incredibly rich and loaded with soil life. It's also great for marshy areas because it pulls in the water from the earth like a sponge, creating a self-watering garden. I've been working on developing our ideas now for us to begin this work come spring. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and we'll be entering into new territory. So if you have any ideas or suggestions to help us get started, let me know. Leave me a comment below. When you decide to start a journey building a homestead or a permaculture garden, part of the process is taking the time to observe and understand the land, the soil, how water flows, the patterns, and how it all interacts with your climate and environment. Finding ways to holistically build and design your plans without disrupting much of what's already naturally there. That is the challenge, and it's the part that I love. Working with what you have, creating synergy in the world around you, you become more deeply connected to the earth and wildlife, understanding that we are not separate, but one system working together for one common goal: to experience this life in peace and harmony, be fully supported, honored, and loved.